Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily, and we are back as always with a ton of new news, and of course we're gonna do a little bit of fan casting today. It's always fun when we talk about any kind of fan casting, and we're not just gonna do fan casting today. We haven't done this since I believe we did it for Joker Fall You Do. We're gonna do some song casting as well. So to do that and so much more, of course, I've got with me as always John. How are you doing today?
I am surviving with this damn cold, but you know, I'm getting better. So that's all we can hope for. But
Yeah.
outside of that, yeah,
Maybe what you ought to do is mix your flavors, like that's
yeah.
what of your medicine. That trust me
Don't
is better.
don't people. I'm just don't do that. Don't mix your medicines, please. That's like actually like don't do
That's really
that.
bad advice. But it's
That's
the kind of
don't do
advice that
that.
the penguin would give you, henceforth, fuck the penguin, because that's the kind of advice that the
I like how when you pointed that to that, it blinked. I thought that was a good touch. I don't know if you did that on purpose or by accident.
that's just the glitch in the matrix, as they call it. Well, we have to start off as we do with the news, so let's start there. So the first piece of news that we got to get into today is James Gunn again. What has James Gunn said of late? So um, people ask him on social media all the time questions about what to expect from the new DCU. And one of the things that people keep asking him, like, hey, is it going to be one of those things where do we need to watch every little project, whether it's a TV show or a movie or animated or live action or even a video game? Because video games are going to be canon to the larger DCU. And people keep asking him, like, hey, do we need to like watch everything to keep up with the story, or could we like pick and choose what we like and maybe skip a couple of things? So to that, James Gunn has said that it is more of a connected universe that exists within one place. They will, it will have differences depending on who the artists and the directors and the production designers are. Basically saying that no, you do not have to, you won't have to feel like you need to do your homework to understand every project. Like you can step into the theaters and watch Superman and not really have seen Creature Commandos, or you can go watch Peacemaker season 2 and not feel like you needed to have watched Superman to understand what's going on, or watch the Lanterns TV series. And even if that's your first taste of the DCU, then you should still be able to kind of catch up and at
Hmm.
least enjoy the project you're watching, whether that's a TV show or a movie. What are your thoughts on this? Because again, this has been a criticism of like the MCU of late, and it's something that even the DCEU was guilty of. The X-Men movies, you couldn't really, after a while, you couldn't keep things straight about like what was canon, what was not canon. But the idea that I think this is what made the MCU very approachable early on in its time was you could go watch Iron Man 2 and not have seen the Thor movie, or you could go watch Iron Man 3 and not have seen Captain America: The First Avenger, and still understand what was going on. Or you can even step into Avengers: Age of Ultron and not necessarily have seen every project that came before it. Nowadays it seems like the MCU is on the opposite end of that, and you do need to do your homework to kind of keep up with like Agatha. All along you wouldn't know what was going on unless you saw WandaVision, and even more so like Multiverse of Madness, a Doctor Strange movie where Wanda dies. So because
Yeah.
that impacts the events of the show. Do you think that James Gunn saying this is a good thing, and then B, how long do you think he's going to be able to keep that up? Because we know the MCU 15 years in, it's kind of hard to make every project just as approachable and make it an entry point like they used to be able to, right? Like you eventually your canon starts to catch up with you. Like what do you think about James Gunn's take on this?
I think it'll be like that for like a couple of years, and then it's I what I like about DC, and so, a lot of people said this is like,
Mm-hmm.
well, they even though they did this initially to like kind of get away from the Snyderverse aspects and just kind of like because they were had the revolving door of like
Yeah.
CEOs like having 17 different visions for
Right.
the DCEU. Um, but what kind of worked about that was that they didn't feel interconnected. Like when you watch Birds of Prey, you didn't feel like you had to watch either Suicide Squad to understand it. You're just like, okay, Joker threw her out. They broke up. So now Gotham is after her because she doesn't have protection from the Joker anymore. Okay, boom, there you go. Or the only thing you would have to do is like if it's a sequel, like you, all right, Shazam, Fury of the Gods is going to be a little harder to figure out because if you haven't seen the first one, but it's like that's what it is for most sequels. So I don't think that's an issue. Um, but it's just like I feel, and that's what I think DC kind of worked is like you didn't have to watch Aquaman to understand Shazam. You didn't have to watch, the Suicide Squad to understand like what was it like Aquaman 2. You didn't have to do all that. So what I like how it's like have each franchise be its own thing. Like obviously you're gonna have to understand sequels to things because they're sequels. But I like how DC's very standalone. Sure, it's interconnected.
Yeah.
Sure, we're gonna have Frank Grillo in Creature Commandos,
Right.
Superman, and Peacemaker, but you're not gonna really understand. You're not gonna have to watch both of those to understand Peacemaker too. The only thing you're gonna have to do is like, and they're probably gonna mention in a
Mm-hmm.
flashback, especially now that it's a new canon with how Rick Flag Jr. dies.
Mm-hmm.
They're just gonna show a flashback. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's then you're not gonna have to watch Superman to understand, like Swamp Thing, or you're not gonna have to watch Paradise Lost to understand Booster Gold, and that's a good thing about. Well, that's a really good thing about like having so many different genres as well. Is you're like it's playing not just to all comic book fans, it's playing to those demographics. As I said before, Swamp Thing caters to horror fans, Booster Gold caters to action comedy fans, Supergirl pertains to more of the female demographic, but at the same time maybe more people who are into like cosmic adventures. So and then when you're bringing in like other attributes like Justice League Dark and like those attributed characters can be more fantasy, or a Plastic Man could be like more straight up comedy.
Right.
Um, it depends on what you do. So you bring in those demographics and make them feel a part. Obviously, they can reference certain things, and maybe like a team up movie like Justice League, you'll have to get like okay, maybe, but maybe we don't have to do that at all. So I think that's definitely a good thing. Keep it connected. Like it clearly takes place in the same universe, but you don't have to, keep things like
Right.
separated.
Yeah.
I think that
I
that
mean,
works.
yeah, and even in the DCEU, they were like, where the idea of the concept of these are the worlds of DC, where when you're watching an Aquaman movie, his domain is the water. It's very different from like the Green Lanterns, where they most likely will be in space or something to that effect, right? Even when they're on Earth, the type of subject matter and threats they're dealing with are very different from something that I don't know Batman is doing in Gotham City or what Wonder Woman might be doing, right? So I know there's overlaps that's bound to happen, but like you said, it's good, and I think DC Comics is uniquely positioned to maximize the effect of that, because whereas with Marvel you have like every other superhero lives in New York City or something like that. With DC, it's not the same. These characters are all larger than life, have their own cities and
Hmm.
domains, water, space, Earth, the cosmos. Like it's and or the magical realm or whatever. Like they exist in all these. And I'm not saying Marvel doesn't have that. It's just the MCU, at least so far that we have seen, there's a lot of similarities and like with where the characters are. There's like Thor was the only character that was really cosmic in the original Avengers, team from the first movie. Whereas I think when you assemble the Justice League, you'll find that there will be a lot more characters that feel like you can't just put them in the same group. Like they all come from the U.S. of A. Like you won't be able to say that about. I mean, I know Superman is the Blue Boy Scout and he's very much an American because he was, grew up in Kansas, but he's Kryptonian, right? Like the Lanterns, right? Like they might be humans, but their domain is very much cosmic. There's Batman obviously is from Gotham City, like a very different feeling from that's the closest thing to a New York City in the DC world. Of course, Wonder Woman comes from Themyscira, like which is a very different world to what the humans, the other humans would be used to. Aquaman lives in the kingdom of Atlantis underwater that most humans might not even know about, depending on how they approach that mythos. It's it's much more diverse, and
Hmm.
I think they'll lean into that, and even maybe non-human characters they might bring into it as well. So we're of course seeing that with Creature Commandos coming up first on the docket for the DCU. But yeah, I think for me it's just going to be interesting to see how that continues over time. Like, well, how can they keep up with that? The idea that you want to make every project an entry point for your audience. Hopefully they can, and you know what? I trust James Gunn with it, but we'll see. We'll see where that
Hmm.
goes. But let us know in the comments, guys, of course, what you think about it. And if you're in the live chat, let us know down there. hello to everybody who is joining. Of course, as always, hit that like button so that way it helps us out, getting this video and content in front of more people like yourselves. And of course, share it with your friends. Let's grow this community that we are bringing and growing, together. And of course, hit the subscribe button if you're new and you haven't subscribed already, and then hit the notification bell so you know when we are live and have a new video go up on the channel. So, with that said, John, let's continue on with the news here. Again, another thing that James Gunn said, we should definitely get that graphic of, what did James say or something like that, because it's kind of connected to the previous story that we were discussing. Again, being asked more about what the DC universe, the new DCU is going to look like, different times, different places, different things, right? He said that, but he also made a very specific comparison to James Gunn. He said that basically the DCU, and this is harkening all the way back to, I believe, the original presentation of the DCU slate, the Chapter One, Part One,
Mhm.
Gods and Monsters, where both Peter Safran and James Gunn said that, hey, it's it's like the new DCU is gonna have more in common with the Star Wars than it's gonna have potentially with the
Let's
MCU.
hope it's not like the quality of current Star
Well, I
Wars.
don't know if that's what they're. I'm sure that's not what they were inferring, but what they were probably talking about is, again, different times, different places, different things, like the Old Republic, the New Republic, the various different eras that the Sith Lords ruled and stuff. The Resistance, what's the other one? The Resistance and the Rebellion. It's and the quote was, "We are also creating a universe that is like Star Wars, where there are different times, different places, different things, and like Game of Thrones, where characters are a bit more morally complex. So
Yeah.
a lot more gray
I think what we
area,
mean, yeah, like Frank Grillo as Rick
Right?
Flag Sr., as you mentioned before.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that Superman is going to be brooding all the time necessarily, but what it does mean is we'll get characters who are more
We're
fleshed
gonna
out and
actually
more.
have Superman be like the actual character. That's crazy.
But what are your thoughts on this again? Again, it's not necessarily the new information because this was said multiple times in the past. But do you feel like that's a fair comparison to make? Is that one that you would like to see? Like the idea that, again, they will be telling stories that take place, in different parts of the universe. Which, I mean, Marvel does that, different places, different things. But I think what
But it's
really
like it's all on
potential.
Earth, you
Right.
know?
Well, no, I mean, but they have there's exceptions, I suppose. The Guardians movies, like they've spent like Avengers Endgame
Yeah,
or
it's like
the Avengers movies that
Infinity
go into
War and the
space more.
Guardians, but that's like kind of it.
Um,
I want to
yeah,
have like different dimensions of like the green and the red and like the mystic like arts of like the plane of existence, like where like the helmet of fate is like that's kind of like a different like pocket dimension. And then you have like cosmic shit, you have like Supergirl and hopefully Lanterns leads into that. And it's not just like it's just it's just like, oh, it's like this is New York, but like this is slightly different New York. This is also New York, but like slightly it's just like, and that's what I
right,
was talking about with like Superman and how they have to establish this metropolis. Okay, it's going to be in Delaware. Interesting choice. Filmed in Ohio. Also interesting choice. So I think like make fucking like Metropolis and Gotham feel fucking different.
right.
Like Gotham feels like a fucking almost like a nightmare neo-gothic hellscape. That's what it kind of is. So, feel like that. And then meanwhile, like Metropolis is like this Art Deco place out of time, like almost like a 1920s New York with a mix of like other like maybe like lesser populated cities like Denver or like Stanford or something like that. I think those kind of aspects as well, like where you have like a big city, but it's not like just New York. Like have the aesthetic of like an old school New York, but like have like the city like feel different. And I think that's what they're gonna do. Like have Coast City feel different from Keystone City, have Midway City feel different from Opal City. Like Opal City was another one because I was reading Starman, um, like actual Starman, not David Bowie's Starman. We'll get to that soon enough, though. Um, Opal City very much feels like, kind of like that. Not Art Deco, but it feels like kind of like a golden age Renaissance kind
Mm-hmm.
of, like kind of almost like a 50s. New York, but at the same time having like different times, like almost like a little bit of 1800s, a little bit of golden age. It has like a whole. That's what I want the DCU to feel like. I want it to feel fake. Like I want it to feel out of
Like a
time.
step removed from the world that we live
Because
in.
what works about the MCU and what works about the MCU and Marvel Comics is that it's very real world based. You know, it's like it'll like most of the heroes are in New York or like Detroit or LA, like real place. Not saying um like DC isn't that. I mean, I think New York shows up and like but it's mainly
Well,
like
like
fake
Shazam
cities.
is in Philadelphia, right? Like,
Yeah.
so Billy Batson,
Like
yeah, yeah,
fake, but I want it to feel fake. Like all the stuff
right,
that are real feel real. But like what I love about DC is that it's not real. Like I like the fantastical element of that, and I hope we really get that here. And what we got from like this version of Metropolis, we have like the gray, not gray, the browns and the greens of like the
mhm,
wardrobe of like the extras. I remember us talking about that,
right,
and how they're not like huge New York skyscrapers, but they're like big, but not like big New
mhm,
York skyscrapers. And I really liked that. And I hope that we like kind of, you know, like Coast City have it feel like kind of like a maybe like a 70s San Francisco, like
right,
very much like that. And then like Central City have it feel like more um like a Midwest city, like
mhm,
where there's like actual like a city, but not have it be like a small town feel, but like well, I did kind of like that about the show because took place. I mean, everything had to be filmed in Vancouver because no budget, and Canada has a really good tax rebates from. That's why everyone
mhm,
films up there. Um, so I kind of liked that because it didn't feel like a big, huge, bustling city. It just felt like just enough to like. I kind of like that, just like a subdued city where it's a city,
right.
but not like New York, L.A., fucking. I don't know what's another really big city.
I mean,
Uh,
Chicago, like
Chicago
there's
is another big
right, like
one.
Chicago,
Like
Dallas,
Orlando,
Houston, right,
Dallas,
Miami. I mean, Miami,
Atlanta.
not yeah, yeah, yep,
Miami
Atlanta,
would be a better one, but
yeah,
yeah, just like like I would want them to feel big,
Seattle,
but like just out of
yeah,
time, like not have it just be modern day city. Like I feel like have that be with Marvel and have that be their identity because that's been their identity since like the 50s. So like boom in terms of comics. So like have this have like Detroit feel like 80s Detroit or like have like Midway City feel like 60s Washington DC. Just like have it be out of time. And that's what I really want here. Like all these places don't feel real. That's what I loved about the Tim Burton Gotham City. It didn't feel real. It didn't look real and it felt like a comic book. And that's what I
right,
want to feel like maybe even bring in like a lot of retrofuturism aspects, which I think James Gunn is trying to do here.
mhm.
Um,
I mean,
like,
even
and I think
Marvel is
what
doing that with Fantastic Four,
Marvel's
right?
doing that with Fantastic Four,
Yeah,
but I think DC can kind of do like that's another thing that Opal City kind of does in those Starman comics is that it kind of feels like a retrofuturism a little bit. And I feel like that's the vibe we're getting with like Mr. Terrific's like jetpack thingy. So, you know, I like just whole different vibes, whole different settings. And I really hope that they stay that course rather than just like, oh, it's just the real world. Because it's just boring. Like
mhm.
I didn't like it when the Dark Knight trilogy did that. I didn't like it when the Snyderverse did that. And I didn't really I mean, the Batman still kind of felt like its own thing, but even then I didn't really like it there either. So eh.
I mean, I'm not on. I don't agree with you necessarily, but I think the Dark Knight trilogy did it in a way that stood out from what had come before. So I mean, you know, it was more of a pivot away from the Batman we had been used to in the '90s. So it worked for me in that sense. I wasn't always the fan of like Metropolis and Gotham City being twin cities across the bay. That to me kind of was like, you're really just completely squandering the opportunity to again, like you said, make the two cities feel so different. I mean, they still tried to go for it, but it just didn't make sense that they were just across the water from each other. Um, So I do hope, like, we get to see more of that personality, and then Gotham feels different, and Metropolis, when we see Superman, feels very much like that Art Deco sort of a, like you said, it's in Delaware, right? So it's not the biggest city on the East Coast, and yet it's a significant one, and it's where we will see Clark Kent. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be fun to see what kind of universe it is. I think the time aspect of different times, I'm really excited to see what that turns into. Are we gonna get like stuff that happens in the future, or are we gonna get period pieces? We know Paradise Lost takes place like 1,000 years in the past, so that will be interesting to see. But up until we get to those projects, we have a few comics out there from DC this year. Of course, the new Absolute series launched, and there was a little quirk that came to light recently about the Absolute Superman. I wanted to just get your opinion on this because I thought I think you might have something to say. So in the new Absolute universe, it is revealed that while Superman is sleeping, he's hooked up to a solar panel and is quote unquote charging through the night, um, which to me doesn't make sense because solar panels don't work at night. But anyway, because the sun's not out. Either Kal-El cannot keep his solar charge, or he burns through it incredibly fast and has to recharge regardless. Interesting. So basically saying that he's vulnerable at night. I'm like, how does that work exactly? Because solar panels need the sun, but then if the sun is out, then Superman can just there's a few logic gaps here. I don't know, John. What do you think? It's like, yeah. Sorry, I don't have it. I don't know how to describe this really in a way that feels accurate or justifiable.
I don't fucking care. I don't care. It's fucking stupid. It's just it brings the dumbest aspect of like him being solar powered
Mm,
into like it's just like it's just the whole like realism. Oh look, it's real because he can't fucking use his powers at night. He's fucking vulnerable at night. It's like, okay, you're giving him like the dumbest weakness imaginable. And people say like, "Oh, a rock." It's like it's a radioactive rock that's rare from space. It's like that's not, but it's like no, it's just nighttime. It's just like Lex Luthor could just go up to him with a fucking Glock and shoot him in the head at like 1 a.m. and be fine. It's like really like that's what we're bringing into this.
well, I mean, if it was that easy, then Batman would have
At least with like
done
Green
business,
Lantern, it's like okay, it's a device, like,
right?
and it's supposed to like inhibit. So like, because I think it was like the whole thing with Volthoom, like, so to have a weakness so that they didn't like go fucking
Hmm.
overpowered. So that works, and plus it's a device that the Green Lanterns use. It's not themselves, you know.
Right.
But it's just like okay, he has a vulnerability to magic. It's just like it, that's it's not like a weakness. It's just like it's like everything is vulnerable to magic because magic is like chaos in like a chaos personified because magic is very and unpredictable as Lex
Yeah.
Luthor has said many times. That's why he doesn't trust magic.
I'm just laughing
Um,
at the memes here.
um, but it just
Oh God.
like it I know people are saying, oh, it's really not just Zack Snyder's like vision, but that's what it feels like. This feels like a fucking dumbass Zack, like we're gonna make him vulnerable at night. It's just like why, like I understand it's a different universe, it's an Elseworld thing, but I can still say it's fucking stupid. Like I could still say that like
I just love the comments in the rest. Bro is reverse Dracula man now. Imagine pulling up on Soups and he says, "Dang, you came way too late. I'm finished charging, bro." Or like sharing the job with Batman because they'll both be up at night now. It's like, is this sound like someone read this book? Yeah, yeah, I guess it's thinly veiled. So hungry. Can't he just fly exactly to the side of the planet that's currently a day? It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Just the fact that you cannot charge from solar panels at night because solar panels need the sun too. You would need to connect to like a Tesla battery thing. You know, one of those like Tesla wall thingies that
Yeah,
you make.
fucking Superman needs
Like
to go to like a parking lot with an EV charger and
yeah,
just plug it
and just like
into
just
himself.
yeah, it's like that's what you need. You don't need solar panels. The solar panels don't work at night. That's the whole problem with solar energy. Is like we need the sun, and you know, like so like do we do that in space? Like we put them out in orbit or something? I don't know. Um, so oh, this new Superman. Somebody thinks it's interesting. I don't know.
Not me. I think it's fucking stupid. It's just like, I mean, you have this, you have Batman using a gun, and
oh
it's just like,
god.
why is this happening?
Well, you know what? Speaking of absolute Batman, this is the other thing I want to bring to your attention. Regardless of what you might think about absolute Batman, I think the numbers he has been pulling. It's again, man. I can't believe Batman's shoulders are able to carry all the weight. You know, just the
I
entire
can.
weight
Have you
of the
fucking seen
comic
how
book
big his
industry.
shoulders are?
He's so the story here is of course Absolute Batman is the highest selling comic of 2024 period, selling nearly 400,000 copies,
Ugh.
John. Put that into perspective for us because a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, that's a lot of comics." But what does
You
that mean in terms of like it's relative to other
normally
comics?
normally another comic, like whether it's an issue, usually an issue
Yeah.
one gets like, I don't know, like maybe like 50 to 80,000,
Yeah.
but like a normal comic gets like maybe 10 to 30,000 copies sold.
This is
Like
10
that's
times
putting
that.
that into perspective.
More even. Yeah. That's huge. I mean, this is more than 10 times. This is like almost 20 times that number.
Yep.
400,000 copies. That's
Yep.
insane. So I mean that's amazing. I'm clearly people like Absolute Batman even though the I still don't understand what that logo is if it's just meant to be like some kind of Kevlar jacket that's just shaped like a weird Batman. I don't I'm not the biggest fan of the logo. I can kind of see how that maybe if I squint hard enough looks like a bat, maybe. But yeah, I guess this Batman also has like Thor's hammer, so there's that. I feel like Zack Snyder will, if he comes back to do that, like, do you want to make an absolute Justice League movie? And like Zack's like, yeah, yeah, bring on
Because this
Junkie
follows
XL,
into
let's
the
mash it up,
bullshit he
guys.
does. So, that makes sense.
I'm not saying I'm not saying he would make do a bad job. He did a great job with the Watchmen. I enjoyed BVS. I actually really love Man of Steel. But yeah, I mean this would feel I think the thematically the visuals really are up Zack Snyder's alley. So if you want to ever see Zack Snyder back with DC, I feel like if this absolute series of comics, especially like an absolute Batman, continues to sell as well, like literally 10, 20 times better than most other comic books, then who knows? Maybe the DC will be like, hey, there's an Elseworlds story to be told here, and maybe Zack Snyder is the best one to do it. So who knows? But let us know in the comments what you think, and in the live chat as well, of course. We'd love to hear from you. And hit that like button while you're here. So right now, we're going to move on to the first of our two main stories today, or the first of our castings, I should say. We have to start by doing a little bit of song casting, John. So, Superman. The new Superman movie is coming out soon, and I mean, it's
Yeah,
still like
boy.
6.5 months away, so it's relatively speaking soon, but it's closer than it's ever been. But James Gunn recently said that there are three songs in particular that will not be in the movie. He won't be using Starman, Holding Out for a Hero, and Don't Stop Me Now. So we're not
Mm-hmm.
getting, Gloria Gaynor or Queen or David Bowie, or at least not those three iterations of those all-time classics. With that in mind, John, I we wondered about this a couple of days ago, and we wanted to kind of save it up for today. So, what songs do you think James Gunn will use in the movie? Do you have any ideas? And if you do, then why did you pick the ones that you did?
Yes. I just quick note. I know I already mentioned this, but like, come on, everyone wants to see Starman in the movie. We do. We really do. Holding out for a hero. Don't stop me now. Shazam did it. Understand those two, but like Starman, people really wanted to see Starman. James, come on, come on, come on. Why you got to do this to us? We wanted to see Starman. I hope he means just not in the trailer. Maybe edit in the movie, but you know, but that's neither here nor there. Now, we were having some discussions with Caleb Underwood, We have two Calebs, one with a K, one with a C. I think it's Caleb Underwood, right? Am I correct in that
I
assumption?
think so. Not Richardson, but Caleb Underwood. Yes.
Not Richardson. Yes, the Richardson's the other one.
Yeah.
Um, so he was bringing up a lot of stuff that could be really good. He brought up an ELO song, "Land of Confusion" by Genesis, "Learning to Fly" by Pink Floyd. A lot of really good suggestions. I think "Give a Little Bit" by Supertramp. That could be good. But I have some different ones. He did bring up "And Justice for All" by Metallica, which in the comics, Superman did admit is his favorite album from Metallica, and he owned every Metallica album up until that point. So I would say Superman's a metalhead. But even then, I don't think this is going to work, the one I have. But the first one I do have is a Metallica song, and that's "The Unforgiven." Now, "The Unforgiven," the basis for the song is actually a real world like
Event or story.
it's based on his real life. The main singer. Oh my god, who I'm blanking. Lars Ulrich. Jesus Christ, I almost fucking forgot his name. But it's a
I'm not a
power
big
ballad.
Metallica fan, so I don't know. You're the one.
So Lars Ulrich, it was a very personal song uh for him because it was I think it was either James Hetfield or Lars Ulrich. I forget which one. Damn, now I'm forgetting which one. But it was so "The Unforgiven" is a song about it's about James Hetfield. I apologize, not Lars Ulrich. I got my guys confused. But it's a very personal song about how he was dealing with his mom who was dying of cancer, and he and it was he had it was his mom was had a very treatable cancer that where she could have lived, but but his family was very like a lot of like Christian evangelicals, like God will through prayer, God will save her, and she ended up dying. And
Right.
so the basis of the song is about him losing his faith in his religion while also dealing with his mom dying when she could have been saved. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know it's very sad, and I do apologize for that, but um it deals with a parent dying and losing like kind of faith in a type of doctrine. Now, the way I think this can work for Superman is originally I would say, oh, when Pa Kent dies, it's like he loses his life, he loses um he loses a part of himself, and he's like, what who am I after all this if after losing him? But I feel now that we know that Pa Kent is not dying in the movie, as James Gunn did admit that Prue Taylor Vince is going to be in the movie substantially, which means that it's probably going to be a post-crisis version where he lives. So my thinking is I think this would be a great song to play, even though he's a year two Superman. Like he could figure out like what his father, like as in Jor-El, left him, and how he kind of because I mean James Gunn did say like he rediscovers like his Kryptonian heritage and like just and be really becomes a man of two worlds when he's been human for so long. So I think how The Unforgiven can play into that was like he's really discovering his Kryptonian heritage and kind of losing faith in that human side of him, and then going towards maybe the Kryptonian side and losing faith in like the doctrine of what his parents taught him. Not in a bad way, just like in a like and not in a my life is a lie kind of way, just like kind of like that natural phase of like discovering something anew when it comes to yourself, not necessarily in a bad way, just like rediscovering that. And I think that could be a really good thing. And like maybe not an actual death, but maybe a metaphorical death of like his parents, of like them, like, you know, like his, and I'm talking about the Kents, not, you know, the L's, but the Kents dying and like dying, like metaphorical death and like losing the faith in that. Or it could be the actual literal death of Krypton and the death of his real parents, um, and never really getting to know them, who they really are, like the hologram of Jor-El that's probably going to show up. Um, and like I feel like a lot of the themes in the song could really play a part in Superman and and Kal-El's development as a character, and I feel like that would be really interesting. So even though I originally had this as sort of like, oh, him dealing with the death of his father, it could be like it could bring in a lot of different things like metaphorical, literal, and bring in a lot of aspects that James Hetfield put into the song of his own, the tragedies of his own life, and really put that on Superman. I feel like I feel like it makes sense with everything going on. I Because like the thing I've noticed that like I want to have, if you're gonna use a popular song in your movie, there's gotta be a point. Like, James Gunn has used, music in his movies in a very powerful way, and, like, the reason that, Star-Lord listens to all this music is because it's the last connection he had to his mom, and that development, and, like, so all the songs that are used in the movie feel like, you connect to the characters better. That's what I love. What I don't love is when like something like somebody like Taika Waititi's just puts in November Rain in the middle of an action sequence for no reason, and it doesn't fit with what's going on, and we're just expected to just feel something when we don't. So that's what I've noticed. Like, it's not a total bad thing to like just have a random song play, but more often than not, I feel like unless there's like a relatability there or there's a purpose there, then I just feel like why not just use your composer? Why not just use the music you have at your disposal that they can create for you? So, you know, I I just think that that would be very important to have in this case, and you know, I probably have gone too long talking about Metallica, but it's just like Metallica is like something that's canonical to Superman as a character, and I would love to focus on that. And so, I think The Unforgiven is a very good example of that. The next one I have is a Judas Priest song. That's Painkiller. Now, the reason I choose Painkiller is because if you look at the lyrics, um, it is about a being that comes down from space to save the people, to save mankind from now they use the apocalypse, which was as detailed in Revelation. So obviously you're bringing some religion to it, but if we're talking, and even though the character which is on the screen, the album cover is the character that's mentioned in Painkiller, but I feel like just on a surface level of a being that comes down from space to save humanity from the inner depths of evil, I just think that makes sense in regards to Superman. And I think it could also feed into the comedy a little bit. Like, because this is like, has a very heavy, like, this is like one of the heavier, thrashy, like Judas Priest songs. Um, so I think it'd be really funny. Like, I think I've mentioned this before, where it's like, maybe like Superman or Clark Lois, not Lewis, Lois and Jimmy are like driving somewhere for like an interview or like doing a story or whatever. And they're just driving in their car, and He's like, oh, and Clark's like, why don't I turn on some music? And then Lois is like, Smallville, I'm not really interested in like smooth jazz or country or whatever the hell you listen to. And he's like, oh no, it's fine. I'll just throw on some music. She's like, oh, okay. And then he like turns on Painkiller. And like it's like the middle of the song when it's like at the most like thrashing and most heavy metal. And then it's like the scene just they and so it plays the lyric of like him of like the painkiller coming down to save humanity. And then like Lois and Jimmy just give like a slow turn of like, what the fuck are we listening to? Who are you? And then it just shows them driving, and then it like cuts to the next scene. I just think that would be really funny. Like it's just like Superman, like Clark is just like this nerdy, quiet guy, and then he's just listening to fucking heavy metal. Like, I don't know. I just think that would be really funny. I think that would be really awesome. And Painkiller, great song. The Unforgiven is a great song, and it's not quite as depressing. It's Painkiller is just awesome, thrashy, heavy metal goodness. So, and plus, I mentioned this before. It would be really awesome to have Superman, like the beacon of hope, be like a metalhead to showcase that not like because a lot of people think metalheads are these violent asshole people that just that are just like the worst degenerates of humanity, and like they're all just serial killers and rapists and like all these terrible people, when it's just like the complete fucking opposite. So I believe that Superman is actually a metalhead, because the nicest people you will ever meet are metalheads. So I think it would be like the most awesome to like showcase Superman as a metalhead, because it shows that like the beacon of morality and goodness and hope listens to fucking Metallica or Judas Priest or Megadeth or any of these great bands across time. Black Sabbath, possibly. So I just think that that would be really awesome. Now we move on from Superman to the other side of the coin of evil, Lex Luthor. Now, I am cheating a bit because this was used in Supergirl, but I think it perfectly encapsulates Lex Luthor as a character and as a person. And that's My Way by Frank Sinatra. Memed song to hell. Yes. But like if you really listen to the lyrics, it really showcases uh Frank Sinatra's My Way showcases like Lex Luthor as a character. And because it's like I like it just it's pretty much a very regal way from Frank Sinatra. Like this song specifically, it feels like one giant fuck you to anybody who's like, I'm doing it my way. Like I ate it up and spit it out. I saw it through without exemption. I don't have any. I have few regrets. It's like the ultimate fuck you song, but it's done in such a classy way that I feel like that perfectly describes Lex Luthor. And it was used to describe Lex Luthor, John Cryer's Lex Luthor specifically. And I think, it just works. Like I actually had a scene um to envision my own version of BVS, where I did like kind of like a fan version where it was like instead of them fighting, they team up to stop Lex Luthor, because Superman just can't like, beat him up normally. He needs like smarts, and it's like, you know what? I need to fight fire with fire. I need the world's greatest detective. I need Batman to help me out. And I think that works. So like the scene I had was like Lex Luthor knows he's finished. He's just looking at the window, and My Way starts to play. It's like like a SWAT team is coming up to arrest him, and it's just like he's just like not even, he doesn't have a care in the world, because he's like he knows he's finished, but he's like whatever. it doesn't matter to me. I don't care because I'm Lex Luthor. I'm because he has a team of lawyers. He can get out instantly, but it's just like the classiness. That's all I want to see from Lex Luthor. The classiness. I feel like we've been missing that from a lot of Lex Luthors as of recently. Don't get me wrong. I love Michael Cudlitz. I thought a metal Lex Luthor was awesome, but what I like and and then like it goes back and forth between, Superman and Batman, who's been like struggling with like accepting Superman as a teammate, and it's going back and forth, and then they finally, the SWAT team is like, get down on your fucking knees, and Lex Luthor is just very like, he puts his hands on his head and they arrest him, and then it ends with my way, and then like Superman and Batman like shake it out, and showcase that despite Batman being a like man who doesn't trust anybody, he's like, you know what, I think I can trust this guy, and showcasing the greatest friendship in comics, and not have them fight for no reason.
I
I
mean, I
just
think
I think that would be awesome. Like
I,
that,
I
like just imagine
yeah,
that scene going.
it works, but I think that almost works better as a trailer song than it does in the movie potentially. Although it could, I think the way you described
I
it would
think
work really well. But
yeah,
I'm just thinking, I'm like, we get a trailer that features more Lex Luthor than we
more
maybe even
Lex Luthor,
thought
exactly.
we would get, and this would be a perfect way. Like, do some version of it, maybe not the original mix or composition, but like,
Get Jay
I could
Schlatt to
see
do it.
that. I could, I could see it. I think this would be great. I mean, I think all your picks are really good. Because again, some of the tie into the the Superman canon from the comics, like he's a metalhead. Metallica is and Judas Priest, they're two of the biggest names from the genre ever, and of course, My Way, we like of course is one of the famous songs from like the New Year celebrations, right? That's coming up soon. So but it's the context in which the song is written, like the lyrics, like you said, I think could fit really well, and it would be a really clever way of doing it. And again, kind of
Yes.
basing it around a character in the movie would be exactly what James Gunn would love to do. I think he does. He's done that many times before, and this would work
Yes.
perfectly.
Most definitely.
So
And I just,
yeah,
get some Metallica in there, get some Judas Priest, but also like have some classiness.
yeah,
Frank
yeah. Of
Sinatra.
course,
But I also
stay
like those
classy.
suggestions that Caleb Underwood was giving us the other
Yeah.
day. Land of Confusion. I haven't listened to it yet, but
Hmm.
I keep forgetting to, but that I think, Learning to Fly would be good if there's like a flashback sequence. I've been talking a lot. I need some
Yeah.
water. Hang on.
No, I think those
And it's
are
also
good
really
picks.
hot in my
Yeah.
room right now. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think My Way just perfect. No matter what Lex Luthor, I think it
Hmm.
perfectly. Well, maybe not Jesse Eisenberg, but I think it perfectly describes his character. Perfectly describes the character of Lex Luthor. It, I just love that. I just want to see that.
Yeah.
I just want to see that
I,
done.
I think it would work really really well. I do I agree with you, and I think those are three great picks. Of course, guys, let us know in the chat what you think. Do you have any picks to add to that? Of course, there were a bunch of options that you guys threw out in the chat the other day, and I'm sure you have lots more that you would like to share. So, like if you're in the live chat, drop them there. If you are watching this after the video went up, then of course you can go down in the comment section and let us know. And while you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe, and of course hit the notification bell so you know when we are live with a new episode of the show or have a new video going up. So right now, let's kind of pivot over from song casting to doing a little bit of fan casting. We do this
Yes.
quite often. So today we're gonna do a Supergirl fan casting. Of course, we already know who Supergirl is going to be. Millie Alcock will be playing the character of Supergirl in the movie. But we had to talk a little more about, like, what some of the other supporting characters might be. We have a villain, we have a supporting character already cast. But John, so far the one thing that we don't know quite so much about is who are going to be playing the parents of Kara Zor-El in the DCU.
Right. So Alora Inzi and Zor-El are are Kara's parents. Now I tried to pick people that would be. Now I don't know if we're gonna get. I don't even know if we're gonna get them because flashbacks and whatnot. I think this version of Supergirl is supposed to be like 18. I think Millie Alcock. Actually, no, because she's the context of the comic is that she's 21. going to a planet with a red sun so she could get drunk, and then like shit happens, chaos ensues, typical shit. So I don't know if we're gonna actually get her parents, but I think Lenny offered this idea
Mm-hmm.
because I just thought that was I thought it was a good idea. So so yeah, I decided to roll with that, and I picked four names each. So I'm gonna do Alora first and then Zor-El first, and each, like, the number ones would be together, the number twos would be together, the number threes would be together, number fours would be together. I just think they would complement each other the most. Um, so the first one I have would bring back, speaking of Superman and Lois from the other day, I thought, I would bring back some people from CW. So the first Allura I have is Melissa Benoist. She is a bit young in terms of being the mother of a 21-year-old, but you could throw some makeup on
Yeah.
her. You could throw some makeup on her. You can make her
She
look
could
a little
grow
bit
into the
older.
role, over time, I'm sure. Like, she
And, you could make her look older, make her, like, a little bit more wrinkly, give her maybe some white
Yeah.
streaks in her hair, all that shit. Um, so, she's had a baby, she looks a little worn, it's fine. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, she still looks good, but I'm just saying, like, just
Yeah.
makeup. I mean, look what they did to Colin Farrell, like, come on.
I
Um,
can't argue with that.
so, they can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think Melissa Benoist, because the thing is, she didn't get a fair shake at Supergirl properly, I don't think, because they really didn't understand Supergirl on that show. I mean, just look at fucking Brainiac 5. Jesus fucking Christ, that looks terrible. Um, but it's just like they didn't really get the character. And I think Melissa Benoist could have done what the actual character is, like this very angry, like, outsider character,
Mhm.
but she's a little bit too old now for who they want. And so I'm like, all right, let's make her Allura. And I think that would be really awesome to see. I would like to see her return to this world. And I think she would do I think she would do a really good job. Um, I know that she is a bit young. All the other actresses I have and the actors, well, except for one, her pairing up with, would be older, a little
Mhm.
bit older, who would fit into it more. But I think Melissa Benoist, maybe with some makeup, could do Allura Inzi properly.
I mean, the fans would like it because I know despite the fact that it had its ups and downs, it ran for like what 8 seasons or something like that. So
Six
Super
seasons, yeah.
6 seasons. So like Supergirl, like it wasn't like the show was so bad that they canceled it after a couple of seasons. I know it moved from CBS to the CW after season one, and that caused changes in where they shot it from LA to Vancouver and the budget and all that. But the show had a following and I enjoyed it. I think it actually I think that the early seasons were good and then it had a dip and then I enjoyed one of the later seasons. I don't necessarily I haven't finished watching the last season, but I didn't hear the best of things. But I think Melissa Benoist like deserves another shot at the DC universe, like you said, and she did a great job as kind of making the most of what she was given,
Yeah.
and she played a very earnest Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, so it would be nice. It's kind of again kind of continuing to pay homage to the tradition of bringing back actors who played the role before, and now they're like playing the parents of somebody younger
Like
playing the
Helen
same role.
Slater in the
Yeah.
show and Dean
Hmm.
Cain in the show, who played her
Exactly.
adoptive
Which that
parents.
made my heart smile because I grew up on the new adventures of Lois and Clark's, So yeah, Dean Cain coming back was nice. But anyway, yes, I mean, great pick. I think. Like, who else do you
Yeah.
have though?
So we're going back a little bit to the first live action Supergirl that we got on TV. And that is Laura Vandervoort, who played Kara on Smallville. Now she fits. I know we're kind of going back into Smallville stuff, but I think Laura Vandervoort would be a good choice because she played more of the accurate Supergirl, quote unquote. And she's also older now. She's
Hmm.
40. So I
Right.
think that fits a little bit better into the mother of an 18 to 21-year-old, however they do plan to do it.
Hmm.
So, and I think she could, I do think she's a pretty good actress.
Hmm.
Now, from what little I've seen of Smallville, her on Smallville, she is, not, you know, she's not exactly Allura, kind of that mentorship, but I feel like as an actress who has grown a lot, matured
Hmm.
in, the world of this industry, that I think she could definitely play the part. Like, it's not like totally lost on her. And plus, she played Indigo on Supergirl. So I think
Right.
she's matured as an
Yeah.
actress, and I think she can bring in those aspects that were on Smallville, but also doing something different that would feed into more of how Allura Inzi would be as a character. That I think would how they would make that work. Um, so yeah, I think she does play more brutal characters, but I think she could also be good as like that mentor, like if they decide to bring Allura into this world. If I know she technically would already be dead, but they have flashbacks. They have, there she is on Supergirl, that amazing costume design, amazing makeup design too. They could, bring in like flashbacks or like have the consciousness thing like Jor-El has with Superman. So yeah, I think I think you could definitely do that, and I think she could sell that. I think Melissa Benoist, she's more known for playing like kinder characters, so I think she would fit a little bit better. But I think Laura Vandervoort, in terms of she would be better with the age and maturing and whatnot. So I think she could fit better as like a parent. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's another good pick because you get to bring back somebody who people are familiar with in the DC universe, and she fits the age profile, and I think, like you said, she's kind of grown into the role, whereas Melissa would probably feel a little more on the younger side. I think you can probably buy Laura Vanderwood a little more easily as one of the parents, like as Allura, which would work. I'm so far kind of liking both picks, honestly. It just depends on
Yeah,
which direction they're going in.
but
So yeah,
they're mostly known for TV, so I wanted to bring in some
yeah.
more. I wanted to bring in a very well
You
known
you want to
actress.
bring in some A-listers now, right?
Yeah. So the third one I
Yeah,
have was part of a big franchise already, and after she got killed off very unceremoniously in said franchise, I think, you know what, bring her in. Even if it's a bit part, she'll get paid for like 2 days of work. I don't think she'll mind that. Fucking a paycheck is a paycheck, right? And I ultimately decided on Rebecca Ferguson. I think she is, you know, a badass lady, and I think she's a great actress. I
hmm
mean, she's currently on Silo now, right? Is that the
I
show?
love that show. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is an image from season 2, I believe.
that's
Yes.
why I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is from Silo, right? My dad watches it. He said it was
I love
great.
that show. I'm gonna start season 2 soon. It's already started airing, but great show.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
she's terrific.
Mhm.
She's not exactly A-lister. It's not like you're bringing like fucking like
I
Angelina
maybe
Jolie or
maybe
like
B-lister, maybe A
B-lister. I think
minus.
she's a
I don't know.
solid
She's
B-lister.
worked her way up. Like she's definitely one of the most well-known names out there today. I mean, she's in part of the Dune franchise until
Yeah,
recently the Mission Impossible franchise. I mean, great work overall. She's of course the show. She's a producer on Silo as well, so
yeah.
or an executive producer at least. So yeah, no, I mean, she's doing great work, and I think as
I
far
think,
as
and
her
yeah,
star goes, it's definitely the biggest one of the ones we have discussed so far. So
yeah. I think
yeah,
Rebecca Ferguson would be. She is the if you want someone really famous to bring in
right.
people, maybe even if it's for a very small
hmm
part, I think she's the one to do it, and I think she is just an
And she's already
immeasurably
working with
great talent.
WB with Dune, so
Yeah,
it's under
with
the
Dune,
same
and
umbrella, really.
so,
Yeah.
I think she would be an excellent addition.
hmm
She's Lady Jessica, she already is kinda playing that mother character, um, even though she's fucking batshit insane in Dune Part 2, but,
Just like the book.
yeah, but, I mean, they did change a couple things from the book, but yeah, I think,
In ways that I think are good, but nonetheless, that's a
yeah,
different
they made
conversation.
it so
Yeah.
that, Paul killed the Baron rather than his sister, because
Right.
I believe his sister killed him in the book.
And
Um,
she's like a little
she
kid
yeah,
who's
because there was
almost
a
grown.
bit there was more of a
Yes.
time jump in the book. It was like
Yeah.
years where he
hmm
was like a freedom fighter. In the book, they only make it like a year, maybe. I think a
hmm
year and a half, maybe like
Yeah.
a couple months.
In the
I
movie, you
forget
mean?
how
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, bringing in like she's a pretty well-known name,
hmm
and if you want to have like an actual substantial role, maybe she's still alive, maybe they're doing the Argo City
Right.
explanation backstory for
Right. Yeah.
Supergirl where like this chunk of Krypton is still alive and they're
Hmm.
floating in space and Inzi and Sorel are still alive. So I think that could be really cool.
I mean, did
And
we
so if
see
you want
that
to
in
have that bigger
Supergirl?
role.
Yeah, like wasn't that sort of hinted at in this, or was that the way they went about it in the Supergirl TV show?
No,
Um.
what they've done in a modern
Yeah.
context is that Kal-El and Kara went off in spaceships at the same time,
Hmm.
but Supergirl's got knocked off course. In the show, she was sent to the Phantom Zone, which is why she never aged.
Right.
And then in the comics, I think it was in the New 52, she was in hypersleep and she was revolving around the sun, which like supercharged her cells, which made her
Okay.
like even more powerful than Superman.
Right.
And so, which added into her arc, why she became a Red Lantern. And so that's what they do is that both of them were shipped out. It's just that she got knocked off course, hence why
Mhm.
she's still Supergirl and he's Superman and he aged. So, I think yeah, I think that could work, but, like, the original one was that Argo City was, like, this living piece of Krypton that was just
Right.
kinda floating in space, and that was in the Silver Age/ Bronze
Why am I
Age.
thinking? Was it the Krypton, the TV show where we got a little bit? I don't know. I feel like I've seen that adapted somewhere.
Maybe
I
in
might
Smallville, I don't
maybe
know because I
Smallville.
haven't
Maybe, who
watched
knows?
Smallville.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that David
Somebody let us know in the
Oyelowo?
live chat or the comments. But
Is
anyway,
that, David Oyelowo, or
yep,
am I
that's him. That's him.
good? Okay. If
He's
it
he's in
wasn't,
season
I'd be like, "Oh
one
god."
of the show. He's in the first
But
season.
yeah, I know Tim Robbins is in Silo as well.
Yes.
Um, but yeah,
Yep.
Rebecca Ferguson would be a big choice, but she would be a great choice, I think. Um, so yeah. Oh god, she was so good in Doctor Sleep. She was so fucking creepy in Doctor Sleep.
Hmm.
She was so goddamn good in that movie. She was so
She's good
fucking
in
good.
everything. I mean, she's one of
I
the
mean,
most
she's great in
talented
everything, but
actresses out there.
it's just
Yeah.
like I think like that really, really, really showed her range as an actress because
Hmm.
she was kind of like cool action star at that point,
Yeah.
or like more dramatic roles. But here she was fucking creepy. Like goddamn, she even creeped me out. Not gonna lie, and I don't really get creeped out that much, that often. So good for her, I guess. But yeah, uh, I
I'm
want
sure
to
she
move
will
on.
appreciate the compliment, but go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, the final Allura I have is someone who I think could have been a good Supergirl like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, depending on how you view Supergirl as a character. Um, but I think she has done a good amount of roles. And again, she's 40. I forgot to mention Rebecca Ferguson is 41. She's also 41, my next pick, and I think I've seen her in quite a few things, and I think again, sort of fitting the Vandervoort comparison of like maturing as an actress who's like very different from the role she played versus the stuff she played now. I picked Maggie Grace. I think she could have been a great Supergirl way back when, like when she did like the first Taken, maybe a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
But I think she has aged rather well as an actress, and I think she has more of a I think like determination now. I think this is her, isn't she? Isn't this Walking Dead? Fear the
It
Walking Dead.
is. Yeah, it's Fear the Walking Dead.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I never saw, I watched like the one episode of that show and I gave up. But I think, she has proven herself as like sort of like takes care of business, don't fuck with me kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I like that. I think you know, the only thing I've really seen her in is like the Taken movies, and I remember her. She was good in those. Like, even though like the movies got worse and worse as time went on, I still
Agree with you
think that
that one. Yeah.
um, she like came into her own with like the last film, and she was like being her own action hero. But I still think Maggie Grace would be. I think she would be damn good. I think
Hmm.
I think she would fit into a lot of aspects that you would have as like the mother of Kara, because I feel like you have to have the mentorship, you have to have like, but like also the experience and the of like not just of a mother, but the maturity as well. And I think she could balance all those aspects real well. Ew, Simon Helberg, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out of here. You don't deserve that. Get the fuck out of here. I'm just kidding.
I mean, this must be how Kara came into existence. That's probably what that is.
I don't have Simon Helberg as Zor-El, by the way. Just like to mention that.
But you know what? That I think those are all good. Those are all good picks. I personally think, like, Rebecca Ferguson's the home run there. I mean, it seems like the obvious. To me, it seems like the obvious one, because if you go in that particular direction, you're picking probably like an A. I like to think she's a fringe A-lister at the least, and Rebecca Ferguson taking on the role and kind of adding her power, star power, and again, just her acting ability to the DCU would be fantastic. It would really help to improve and raise the profile of the movie. So that's my favorite pick. I don't know which one of the ones you think is the best, but I think Rebecca Ferguson would be great.
I think Maggie Grace would probably be the best one, because she's not, because if they're only doing flashbacks and they're not doing the Argo City thing where she's still alive, then I think
Right.
Maggie Grace would fit. And I don't think that they would do the wink and a nod, oh, let's pick a previous Supergirl to now play her mother since they're older
Right.
now. I don't think they would do that. That's just me being like wish fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, I get it, but like, it's possible.
But I wanted
suppose,
to pick like a big star, but then someone who's not as big, who could, I think, do the role very well. Both of them.
So. Well, that's the mother. That's Allura NZ. Now let's talk about Zor-El, the father from whom Kara derives her last name as well. Of course, you have Russell Crowe playing. That's Superman's father. Who played Melissa Benoist's Supergirl's father in the Supergirl TV show? Did you ever get to see the character? I feel like
I think we did.
Flashbacks.
I don't remember though.
But we haven't really seen that character very often. I don't even know if we got to that point in the Krypton TV show, really. But who do you have picked out for this character? Who, of course, with the Woman of Tomorrow storyline, we may get to see a lot more of than we ever have in the past.
So, by the way, just to let you know, in Supergirl, the show, he's played by Robert Gaunt in the first season, and then in the first and second season, and then Jason Bear in the 6th. So, yeah. Fun fact. But so the first one I have is, again, for the first two picks, I'm going by, people who have played similar characters, have them be brought back. And speaking of a show that just ended, we have Tyler Hoechlin as Zor-El. Similar to Melissa Benoist, he would be matched up with Melissa Benoist. I feel like that makes the most sense. Yeah. He is 37. He is a little bit young, but again, he looks older. Like, just throw some gray in his hair and like give him some wrinkles, and he should be fine. I mean, they already
put a beard on that man, and he's gonna look 10 years older. I don't know.
Spoiler alert. I mean, they already showed him in like gray in like the fucking series finale where he's all old.
Right.
So I think they should do that. Like, then just do that. That's fine. But I think he's proven it would be a very different role, because I mean, he's played different roles. Like Teen Wolf was a fucking way different from Superman. So so I think he's played a wide range of different roles, and I think Zor-El. I imagine Zor-El is like not exactly like Jor-El, like kind of in the similar vein of like a guy wanting to help. Right. Agreeing with his brother that they need to be saved if they do go into that backstory. So I like, he's not exactly the kind-hearted scientist. Maybe he's rougher around the edges, and like
I saw him in this show, by the way.
Needs more convincing and whatnot.
This is Another Life was a terrible show. But
wasn't Katie Sackhoff in
this? This was her show, yeah. This show just had like random sex scenes for no reason, and just like
people, now I have to watch it.
It was I mean, and then the story didn't make sense. The logic gaps were
I've heard it's
humongous.
I heard it was so bad.
They gave it a second season, and somehow they came to their senses, and Netflix is like, all right, okay, you know what? They didn't really improve that much, even though the second season was a lot better, and there was a lot of like teenage angst level crap in there in the first season. with some of the crewmates. Basically, Tyler Hoechlin's character doesn't really survive the first season, but he's in there, and he felt like probably like one of the few redeeming qualities of the show. But anyway, I digress.
But yeah, so
Both
I
two
think
CW alums here, by the way, right? Two CW DC alums here.
who's the other chick? Oh yeah, she's Gypsy, right?
Yes,
Or
yeah,
well, they
Jessica
couldn't.
Camacho.
Well, they
Right.
couldn't call her Gypsy because that's offensive now. But
But
you know what I mean.
yes. Yeah,
Romani is the word now.
yeah,
So
you're right.
apologies, but like that's the character name.
Yeah.
Was her name in the show. So so I think like him playing like kind of like a similar to his brother of Jor-El, um,
I could see
who
it.
I would imagine be a little bit younger since Kara is older and then Clark is very young, and then he was a fucking villain on Teen Wolf, so you had that as well.
Yeah, he
So
had
I
a
think he
record.
would be a good like rougher, and I think Melissa Benoist would be a good like kinder portrayal. So I think that would
Hmm.
work between the two of them, and as well as the fact they played Superman and Supergirl
Yeah,
on the same
it's
show.
great. Like they went from being cousins to being like a couple. So it's
Yeah.
all yes. There's we won't talk about that too much, but if that does happen,
Yeah, I mean it's I mean
I'm
it could
sure
be
the
worse.
internet won't make
I mean
that
it could be worse. They could be
leap.
cousins in real life, and then they play husband and wife on a show. That would be awkward.
Fair enough. Yeah,
So
I would agree with you. But
uh,
who else do
moving
we
on.
have?
Moving on to Laura Vandervoort's Zor-El. I think, might as well we go with the more hardened Supergirl on Smallville. Let's go with the more hardened Superman with Henry Cavill. Yeah, let's get Henry Cavill back in this bitch. We're not going to have him as Jor-El, but I think it would be really funny to have him as Zor-El. That would be really funny. He's 41 now. He's too old for how they imagine, this
He's
version
not
of the
too old.
character.
He's not
Well,
too
I mean,
old.
in the
It's
realm of
just
what
I
James,
get it.
in the realm
Let's
of
just
what
be
James
honest
Gunn
though.
wants to do, he's playing early. He's an early Superman who's going to be in like mid to late 20s, and that's what they want to do. And Henry Cavill's too old for that. It's like, okay, that's respectable. But Henry Cavill, I think, he was a great Superman. He's played a wide range of roles since then. He's played The Witcher, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, Argyle. The less said about that, the better. He's played a lot of badass roles, and I feel like
Mhm.
Zor-El would be just a really great foil to Jor-El. Jor-El is like
Yeah.
just kind of like what Superman is, like this scientist who sees something wrong with he sees something wrong with Krypton. Something's wrong. We gotta save it. Okay, we can't save it. I'm gonna save my son. It's this morality heavy. I think having Zor-El be the more prickly of like the two, where he's just not an asshole, but he's just kind of like he's just kind of like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if I can listen to you. I don't know and I think Henry Cavill could obviously nail that. Like, he's played a lot of great stuff in the past. He's gonna, play, in Highlander, and that's gonna be awesome as
Mhm.
well.
He's gonna be
In
500 years old in that one.
Warhammer, if that
Yeah.
show is gonna actually fucking happen,
Yeah.
Geralt is a character who is very like prickly,
Mhm.
for lack of a
Mhm.
better word.
Mhm.
Bit of an asshole, but yeah, even then I think he can play, it's clear he could play darker characters, and I think Zor-El would be slightly darker,
I
but not
mean,
like a dick. I know Zor-El eventually becomes like Cyborg Superman I know he became Cyborg Superman in the Rebirth comics, which is fucking stupid, but like ignoring that, I'm just saying,
I think. Well, I'm just saying that I think if you're gonna bring in Henry Cavill, you better give him something to do. Like I
yeah,
hope this isn't like a small role, because you don't go to the trouble of casting an actor of the caliber and star power of Henry Cavill to only have a small role. I mean, although I guess you can, I suppose, because Russell Crowe played, the father of Kal-El, and then they had Kevin Costner play his human father. Like it's, I feel like in Man of Steel, if yeah, sure, you might not agree that it wasn't as good as I believe it is, but you can bet that Superman will never have such a star-studded, parental lineage that he did in Man of Steel. I don't think they're
yeah,
ever gonna like be able to top what they were able to pull off there. And
no,
Diane Lane on top of that, come
yeah.
on, like
And then Vanessa, my love, or she's coming back for
yeah,
Daredevil Born Again. She wasn't going to because of scheduling conflicts, but due to them like trashing
Re-
everything and then
Basically, yeah.
starting
And then
from
cutting the
scratch, she's like,
episode
I can do
order
it
in half.
now.
Yeah, it works. It works. I mean, Marvel's also kind of pivoted to like they're like, yeah, everything Netflix Marvel is canon. But no, I mean, I think Henry Cavill would be an amazing pick. Again, another star-studded choice here. Especially if you have like a Rebecca Ferguson and Henry Cavill, you're like, oh my god, all of a sudden you've got like these two huge stars joining a movie, and they will really help to take a lot of the pressure off of somebody like Millie Alcock, who, again, it's not like she needs that. She's fantastic. She's already been in one of the most popular TV shows, of the recent era, but she's still a young actress, and I think adding the kind of star power and talent around her that Henry Cavill and somebody like Rebecca Ferguson would bring to the table would give her a lot more room to breathe and grow into her role over time. So I would think that's a pretty good combo, but I think you have a couple of more. So let's see who else
I
you have.
do.
Can you top that?
So now for Rebecca Ferguson's better half, I do have someone who's relatively famous, but not as famous as Rebecca Ferguson, hence why I paired them up, because he's a name. He's a Nepo baby, but he's a name, but he's not as big of a name. And I picked Scott Eastwood because I think like someone like Rebecca Ferguson, I think she would be a very good like cynical Allura. And I think Scott
Mhm.
Eastwood, even though he's the son of the most cynical asshole on planet Earth, I think
Hey,
it
he's
like
making movies at 94 years old. He might get a Best
yeah.
Director nom out of that. Come on now.
Um but yeah, I mean, if WB
Actor
weren't
turned
assholes
director.
when it came to juror number 2, we could have, gotten something a little bit
Well,
better.
I mean, but it was, the movie would not have made any money. But anyway, it's the
But
whole kind of the
Scott
conversation.
Eastwood, again, he's a name, not like the biggest name, but he is a
Right.
name. And I think he would pair well with, I think he would be like kind of like, he has played gritty roles before. He is a
Hmm.
DCEU alumnus. So obviously, bringing him in would be kind of, tongue in cheek, even though he was a nothing, nobody character in
I
not the Suicide Squad, just Suicide Squad.
right.
But yeah, I think he would be very good. Like, I would like to see him as more of like a kinder Zor-El, like Allura is like the cynical one, and he's not. I think
Hmm.
that would be a really interesting like dynamic to have, especially with Scott Eastwood, who's like known for like gritty, like war movies, action movies, sci-fi movies. He's more so known for that, but he has a kinder side. He has been in quite a few Nicholas Sparks
Hmm.
movies. He looks like Chris Evans here. He looks so much like Chris Evans here. That's crazy. No, go back. He looks so much
Oh,
like Chris Evans here. That's crazy.
yeah. You know what? That's
I
actually
think
very
like
true.
because it's like
It's
when
like if you squint, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
like
Yes.
Steve Rogers is in like still like a
Oh,
a
in
little
Like the first Avenger
first
gear.
Avenger when he's like
Right.
before like he's roided
Right.
out. It's like
Hmm.
he kind of looks like that a little bit. But
You're
anyway,
saying before he's rated. Okay, cool.
um, but when he's like a little skinny
Wow.
Steve Rogers, because that's
Yeah.
when he's wearing the white T-shirt
Right.
because he's
No, but
like
he's wearing it even after he gets rated out. He chases a
um
dude down the street. I don't know. I'm just saying.
yeah, but
Then wakes up in the future.
I think Scott Eastwood could, I think like having that Nicholas Sparks pedigree where
Hmm.
he's like played like very kind-hearted hearts of gold types. I think he would wait, chick on the left, is that Kaylee Spaney?
That is. Yep.
She was in this she was in
She
this
was she
fucking
was one
shit
of the
fest.
main characters in the sequel. Yeah, you didn't know
I
that?
didn't fucking realize that. And
Yeah,
Mackenzie
that's
was in
her.
that too.
Younger
God damn,
Kirsten.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
that. But well, now she's blowing
2018.
up because she's been in like 3 like she was in Alien Romulus, she was in Priscilla. What else was she
Mm-hmm.
in? She was in something else this year that was like really good.
I'm gonna have to look it up, man. I don't know, but
Anyway, but yeah, I think Scott Eastwood, I think it would be cool to like him
Civil
like he
War.
plays
She was in Civil
Civil War.
War.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was oh my god, that was so good. She was so good in
yeah.
that.
Hmm.
But yeah, Scott Eastwood, I think would be a good like kinder portrayal. Well, maybe Rebecca Ferguson's the more prickly like portrayal. I think that could be a good dynamic. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean he's 38. He's still like relatively on the young side. I would imagine it would be more so 40s, but I think it could still work. But yeah,
Yeah.
Scott Eastwood, I think could be good.
Yeah. By the way, Kaylee Spaney could have potentially made for a good Supergirl.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think Scott Eastwood is a good pick. I mean, he hasn't always landed the best of roles, but I mean, this would also be one of those supporting roles, which I think it would fit perfectly within his resume in terms of the kind of roles he usually ends up playing. I personally would try to cast him for a role that is a little bit bigger, maybe give him a chance to kind of break out a little bit.
Yeah.
But depending on what direction they're going with Zor-El, I mean, he could be a good fit. So yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe you have one more to get into.
I
Who do
do.
you
The
have in
Maggie
mind?
Grace counterpart. I think again she's played more gritty characters, but she's also like matured and played some non-gritty characters. But I think someone who could be who also has Arrowverse pedigree. I didn't realize how many like Scott Eastwood and Arthur Darvill. I tried not to do DC characters, but like they did. Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen, but they did. But yeah, Arthur Darvill is who I would pick for Zora because like he's very unassuming. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of like a skinny like because like that's who he was on
Right.
you know
Yeah.
Rory Williams was very
Doctor Who.
unassuming. Rip Hunter, he was like kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
cooler cowboy kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, like he wasn't like totally like like he can like do both sides, and I think he did that very well. But like however he decides to play as Zor-El, whether he's like a more of a prickly, cynical character, he also played a priest on Broadchurch. He was very good in that. Where he's like, I think it would be really interesting how like how he could do like maybe a more unassuming Zor-El, like
Mm-hmm.
someone who's like Jor-El. We've seen Jor-El like be like the Russell Crowe
Mm-hmm.
iteration where he's like outspoken against like the board of Krypton, the Krypton Council, where he's like, "You guys are fucking idiots. You're killing our planet. Fuck you guys. I'm out of here."
I
But
mean, I
like,
forgot
but
that he came back as Rip Hunter in that Legend of Tomorrow, like the latter seasons. I thought
yeah,
once they got rid of him, that he was just gone. I know it's been a while,
um,
but
but
yeah.
yeah, I think bringing Arthur Darvill in, I think he could play like a maybe like a really good like I don't want to say like shy, but like someone who's like
Mm-hmm.
who is too scared to like do anything against Krypton. Like he's like the brother that's like kowtows. He listens to like the council even if they're doing fucked up shit.
Yeah.
So he's like he doesn't want to be in trouble and that kind of thing. I know that's like obvious for Arthur Darvill because he's like played someone like Rory Williams and that's he kind of fit into that character when unless he like could go like farther when needed to be like the episode of Good Man Goes to War was a good example of that when he came back as the Centaurian. But I think like it would be really awesome to like he plays like this quieter character
Yeah.
and then like to finally agree with his brother like you know what we have to do this, we have to save our children, we can't let them die on Krypton, we have to let the legacy of Krypton like live. And he's like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna listen to you, I'm gonna finally like stand back and fucking like do this. And like maybe if they decide on like the both of them leave and her pod gets knocked off course, then it could be like maybe Zor-El like is like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, and then he does this, and like the count, maybe like whether it's Zod, whether it's like a councilman, whatever the fuck, they come in and then try to stop the experiment. And like he gives the ultimate sacrifice. Maybe he saves Jor-El's life, something like that. And like in his dying breath, he's like, I did something with my life instead of,
Yeah.
cowering like a fucking bitch. I like did something. And I think that could be like a good, like, if they decide to do that. But I think he can do outspoken really well. I think he could do the rowdy cowboy kind of thing like he did in Legends of Tomorrow. So I think Arthur Darvill has the range to do Zor-El in many different ways, but that was just a suggestion. But yeah, he's 42 years old. I think he doesn't look it. The man looks great for his age. He's the oldest one here, ironically enough. But yeah, I think
You
Arthur
wouldn't think
Darvill would be
that though, right?
awesome.
Like on the surface, I wouldn't imagine that he's the
Plus,
oldest. But yeah.
he's good at playing smart characters, and Zor-El's
Right.
usually I don't think he's a scientist like Jor-El, but he's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of fits into that mold, so I think he could do that very well
Right.
as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Brendan Routh potentially could do a great job as Zor-El as well. By the way,
Yeah,
I think he could be a good fit there too. But these are all
but
great picks.
I already had two Supermen on
I
this
know
list.
it's
I
at
wasn't
that
including
point you would
another one.
just be right, right. No, I get it. I mean, we've also recently we put Brendan Routh down for some other character, if I remember correctly. So
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, right? Shazam. All right. Well, I mean, hey, these are great picks. I think they all have merit. I personally, like I mentioned earlier, would love to see a Henry Cavill and Rebecca Ferguson combo. I think that would immediately add so much credence and prestige and just up the level of just the
But I
caliber
don't think Henry
of.
Cavill would fucking come back.
I
No way.
well, you never know. I mean, he's left the door open in the sense that and James Gunn said that future collaborations and different role might be possible, but it's also like he's got a busy schedule. Like the guy's doing Highlander, he's just got cast in Voltron. I'm sure he's still trying to get Warhammer off the ground. He's plenty busy as is, but I mean it depends on the size of the role and what kind of story they're trying to tell. If they really want to have him in there, I'm sure James Gunn would try to make it happen. But it's also one of those things where, like with Superman, they went and cast some, character actors for the roles of Superman's parents because it doesn't seem like they're really going in the direction that Man of Steel did. Where you needed some, you could have cast, lesser known actors, but of course they went for the best of the best with Russell Crowe, Kevin Costner, Diane Lane. So it depends, right? Like with Superman, they didn't do that in the new movie that James Gunn is working on. Are they gonna have the same kind of approach with Supergirl's parents, or are they gonna go more in the direction of what Man of Steel did and go with more well-known names, A-listers, and really just the top stars in Hollywood? But let us know in the comments what you guys think. Of course, as always, hit that like button while you're at it. If you're watching live, then we'd love to hear from you in the chat. But if you're in the comments below, then let us know what you thought about these picks. Do you have any more to add to it? We first, of course, did the song casting of Superman, and then we were talking about Supergirl, talking about basically casting the parents of Supergirl, Zor-El and Allura Inzi. So between the two of them, we don't know yet who's playing them, but I guess
if they are to appear at all.
Yeah, I would imagine they would, considering that they're trying to stay fairly close to the original comic book, The Woman of Tomorrow comic for Supergirl. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, of course, let us know your thoughts and your fan theories and fan casting in the comments down below. And as John was doing earlier, hit that subscribe button and then tickle that notification bell so you know when we go live or have a new video go up. And then, of course, hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you next time on another episode. As always, John of DCU Daily.